Here are some of the things you didn't know about the WNBA's biggest star, Caitlin Clark. First off, she comes from a family of athletes. Caitlin Clark was college basketball's biggest star during the 2023-24 season and is set to become the face of the WNBA in the next decade. She's already proven that she's an excellent athlete.
Clark, step back three, knocks it down!
Of course, while she worked hard for her success, it also helps that she comes from a line of athletes. Her father, Brent, was a multi-sport athlete who played basketball and baseball at Simpson College in Indianola, Iowa. But Caitlin's athletic background goes back to her grandfather, a football coach at Dowling Catholic, where she attended high school. The athletic gene runs in the family because her older brother, Blake, won 2 state football championships in Dowling before going to Iowa State to play college football. Meanwhile, 2 of her uncles are also college athletes. Tom Faber played basketball. Meanwhile, Mike Nizzi played football. So it goes without saying that Clark was born and raised to be an athlete. Still, it takes more than just genetics to become as good as she is in basketball. Speaking of her greatness in basketball, Caitlin always wanted to be a pro since the 3rd grade. Growing up in a family of athletes allowed Caitlin to be exposed to sports early. She was a competitive athlete in many fields, but ultimately chose to play basketball. Clark has been obsessed with the sport since she was 9 years old. She started working on her dreams in the 3rd grade, allowing her to steadily but surely become one of the best young players. According to Clark, she took things one step at a time, working through high school to earn a basketball scholarship in college. But her ultimate goal was always the WNBA, and she checked all the boxes when she became the first overall pick in 2024. That's what you call setting your mind on a goal and achieving it. We could all learn a thing or two from Caitlin on how to reach each goal one at a time. Even though she took things one step at a time, she juggled multiple sports. We may know Caitlin Clark as the phenom that she is in basketball and one of the greatest college players ever, but she's also as great in other sports as in hoops. She grew up playing multiple sports, including soccer, softball, volleyball, and tennis. Of course, she's mostly known for her basketball prowess, but she can stand out in all the sports she plays because she's a natural athlete. But not many people know that she's also exceptional at golf. Unlike most athletes who took up golf later in life, Clark started playing the sport at an early age. While you won't be seeing her teeing up in the professional golf world anytime soon, she enjoys the sport from time to time. Of course, one of the other famous basketball personalities exceptional at golf is none other than Stephen Curry, a player Clark idolizes and is often compared to. Now that you know that Clark is also a golf enthusiast, the Curry comparisons will never end. But if there's any athlete she'd rather be compared to, it would be the greatest shooter of all time. Forget about watching them competing in a shootout, we want to see them square off on the green. While we do want to see her going toe-to-toe with the best shooters in the NBA, like Curry, Clark has been competing with boys since her childhood years. Growing up in a part of the country that didn't offer much to female basketball players didn't stop Caitlin from pursuing her dream of becoming a standout player. The fact that she grew up in a sports family was the reason why she was already competitive at an early age. Her dad was her first basketball coach because he saw her advanced skills early and was willing enough to let her develop differently. Because of that, her father signed her up for the boys team so she could get challenged. Of course, it also helped that she didn't have much competition on the girls' side. Caitlin played against boys in soccer and basketball up until about 6th grade. At one point, she won the MVP award over the boys. The lack of AAU options was also one of the reasons why she played against boys. Because of that, she learned how to compete with players bigger, stronger, and faster than her. So if you don't think she could play against the best in the NBA, think again. She could probably give any NBA player a run for his money, especially with her competitive nature and sweet shooting stroke. Of course, she thanks her brothers for her quick development in the sport. Caitlin Clark may have held her own against tough competition in the boys' part of the game during her younger years, but she's been quite vocal about her brother's contribution to her success. Growing up with 2 brothers made her compete hard for what she wanted, especially in sports. She once called them her biggest supporters. At the same time, her brothers were her biggest haters because they always tried to find faults in her game and force her to be better. It all started when they were children, as the bigger boys pushed her beyond her limits. Her brothers were bigger, stronger, and faster, so she needed to find her edge in the game. After all, her mother once told her that she's got to find a way to hold her own, especially when she couldn't win when playing against her brothers and their friends. She's so much better now because of her siblings, so if she were to challenge them to a serious game once more, there's no telling whether or not they're good enough to reach her level as a competitor. Her skills speak for themselves because she broke record after record in college. Caitlin Clark's rise as an athlete allowed her to become one of the best college basketball players, the men's division included. Throughout her successful 4-year stay with Iowa, she shattered numerous records and accumulated ridiculous stats throughout her college career. She averaged 28.4 points, 7.1 rebounds, and 8.2 assists in her stay with Iowa. While putting up those numbers, she became the all-time leading scorer in college basketball history, men's basketball included, shattering the long-time record held by Pete Maravich, whose scoring record seemed unbreakable for decades. She's also the first college player to collect 3,800 points, 1,000 assists, and 950 rebounds in her entire career. She's also the women's leader in three-pointers made. However, she could never break Sabrina Ionescu's career triple-double record. Still, it looks like no other player could break some of the records Clark re-established in college. It's possible, but it's not gonna happen anytime soon. But while she was breaking records, the only award and accolade she never won was the national championship. Now that we're on the subject of championships, she drew inspiration from one of the greatest champions of all, John Cena. Well, professional wrestling may be different from basketball, but Caitlin Clark was a big fan of one of the biggest names in the sports entertainment industry, John Cena. In fact, she became iconic for one of her most famous moments in college. After hitting a big three-pointer in Iowa's win over Louisville in the Elite Eight in 2023, Clark pulled off Cena's iconic "You Can't See Me" taunt, waving her hand over her face as if she was gesturing to her opponents that they can't do anything about her scoring and shooting. This became one of her most memorable moments. Cena, of course, was in the loop of what was happening in the college women's basketball world. He congratulated Clark and raved about her on X. So while Clark never won a title in college, it was amazing to see her getting the Cena seal of approval. Her growth in basketball allowed her to become college basketball's biggest draw. Thanks to her amazing rise through the ranks of women's basketball, Caitlin Clark is now a household name in the sport. Her rise started in her junior year when she dominated the collegiate scenes with her combination of scoring, shooting, playmaking, and rebounding. She became one of the greatest all-around competitors the sport has ever seen. As such, her name was an instant box office attraction to many networks, who knew that people were willing to watch women's basketball games for the first time because the next big thing in the sport was making it look easy. Clark was the hottest name in college basketball in her last 2 seasons with Iowa. However, it was during her senior year that her name started breaking records. The NCAA championship game between Iowa and South Carolina drew nearly 19 million viewers nationwide. In comparison, the men's championship game had a viewership average of nearly 15 million. No women's college basketball has garnered over 10 million viewers in the United States. The closest was the 2023 championship game between Iowa and LSU. Of course, the only reason why that game got nearly 10 million viewers was none other than Caitlin Clark. She accounted for nearly 29 million viewers in the last 2 women's championship games. No other women's basketball player has ever been close to her level as a box office draw. Thanks to Clark's stardom, she has brought in more money to the WNBA than any other player. In the past, it was against the rules for college basketball players to make money from sponsorship deals and other similar contracts. However, in 2021, a Supreme Court forced the NCAA to enact a rule regarding name, image, and likeness, or NIL, contracts, which allowed college athletes to get paid for social media brand deals, sponsorships, commercials, and other similar partnerships without breaking the NCAA rules on amateur athletes. Of course, Clark became an instant celebrity because she was college basketball's biggest star for the past 2 seasons. She has over 1 million Instagram followers and is one of the most recognizable names in the sport. Even people who aren't interested in basketball follow her because she's just that famous. Clark is so popular that she appeared in an episode of Saturday Night Live. She's a natural choice for many brands, including State Farm, Nike, and Gatorade, thanks to her Instagram followers. In 2022 alone, her NIL deals were around 3.1 million, making her one of the most lucrative athletes in the sport. Her name has also brought in a lot of different investors and endorsers to the WNBA, making her the league's cash cow. So while her WNBA contract may not be the biggest, her endorsement deals will undoubtedly allow her to live comfortably for the rest of her life. Not everyone is happy about her success. The WNBA has seen a spark in viewership due to Caitlin Clark's arrival. TV networks that show WNBA games now have tripled the viewership compared to last season, because people now have a player they want to watch. Clark attracted fans to the WNBA, clarifying that she's the biggest reason to tune into women's basketball, even though this sport has steadily increased for years. But while Clark has been one of the most significant culture changes in the WNBA, some of her peers just can't be happy for her and the growth of the league in general. Diana Taurasi, arguably the greatest of all time, has started a mini rivalry with Clark, who's nearly 20 years her junior. Of course, it's just Taurasi being competitive, but maybe she's a bit salty that she wasn't getting the same attention and endorsement deals during her peak years, some of the best seasons in WNBA history. Then there's Angel Reese, her old college rival. The rivalry started in the 2023 championship game between Iowa and LSU as Reese won over Clark. In 2024, Clark got the last laugh, beating LSU on their way to the championship game, but the rivalry never ended once they got to the WNBA. Reese once claimed that people weren't tuning into the WNBA for just one person. She was talking about Clark. Charles Barkley, who knows that the WNBA is growing because of Clark, supported the young star by telling her haters to stop hating and be thankful for her presence in the league. After all, WNBA players wouldn't be getting the attention and support they're getting now if the league didn't have a player who could serve as its face for the next decade.